Joining me is Sam Armstrong. What do you make of this? That you work with a lot of Conservative MPs, many of whom are equally unhappy, I would say, with where the government is and the Prime Minister and policies. How significant is Lee Anderson, currently not even sitting as a Tory MP, moving over to Reform UK?
Lee Anderson is a big beast in Conservative politics. There is no doubt that his force of charisma, what he represents, the red wall, means that he is speaking perhaps far more than any other backbench MP for an awful lot of 2019 Conservative voters. And remember, the Conservative Party were sent into office with this bumper majority on the back of combining traditional Conservative voters in the South with this new breed of former Labour red wall voters in the Midlands and North of England. That's what saw the Conservative Party get elected with a huge majority. But Rishi Sunak is obviously a very different beast from Boris Johnson, who brought those two together. Now, there will be some that are saying today that Lee Anderson walked away from the Conservative Party. There are others, including the new Conservative group of MPs, who've just put out a statement that says, we blame the Conservative Party for walking away from the coalition of voters that sent us here in 2019.
But it's interesting. The only thing I disagree with you there, when you talked about, Boris brought people together in 2019, I think people completely underestimate Brexit. Boris was the only, not popular with MPs, but they went, no, the public like him, they trust him, he campaigned on Brexit. They trusted that he was going to deliver on Brexit. It was Brexit, I think, that brought the issue together, but also the alternative was Jeremy Corbyn, for goodness sake. And I do think we were in very different times. I mean, not to underplay the significance of that. I was on air, we've got that exit poll and with Boris's, 80 strong majority victory. But there's no doubt at all, as you say, Rishi Sunak is very much, means almost the opposite, isn't he, Boris Johnson, as a sort of a managerial sort of leader. Let's have a little watch and a listen of this clip. I think we just seen it in the news, of Lee Anderson at the Reform UK launch just now of him as their first MP. This is what Lee Anderson had to say.
It's not controversial to be concerned about illegal immigration. It's not controversial to be concerned about legal migration. It's not controversial to be, worried, concerned about the Metropolitan Police and a failing London Mayor and the hate marchers, the street crime and the shoplifters literally getting away with ruining businesses on a daily basis.
I mean, he's speaking what a lot of people are thinking. I would like to know what you're thinking. Please do get in touch. Your instant reaction to that news in the last half hour or so. What about Lee Anderson defecting? 0344 499 1000. Love to hear what you have to say about that. He's not saying anything controversial, Sam.
No, and crucially, there are two sides to Lee Anderson. The first is the policies he's saying, traditional Conservative policies. The other side is how he's saying them.
Yeah.
Rishi Sunak, Jeremy Hunt, this entire cabinet, very polished, very smooth, very quite boring, Conservative, suited and booted politicians. Boris Johnson, Lee Anderson were a different breed. They say it as it is. They talk in the language of ordinary people.
But everyone's very patronising about that, aren't they? But actually, he's just, he's talking how normal people speak, who, I don't know, maybe, didn't go to top private schools like a lot of those people and just speak like normal people. This is the thing. I'm supposedly one of that sort of North London metropolitan. Lee Anderson appeals to people like me. He's saying what we're thinking. When again, you cannot like someone's language about, and I thought it was just clumsy and not quite accurate about Islamist control, Sadiq Khan and Keir Starmer, for which he was suspended from the party. But in terms of the sentiment, in terms of the failure to stand up to these people, I thought he was right, and I think that's what most people do. Most people don't sit there like a editor of The Guardian, sort of nitpicking around little words. They want to know if someone is basically on their side, and there is this feeling. People looking at the budget last week, which just was a complete blur. It was just blur, wasn't it? I mean, yeah, OK, we've got some money back. Well, it's our own money, which you took anyway, which you've not been spending very well. Public services is still terrible. We still can't pay our bills. People are still struggling, all of that. There is a real feeling that, and on the culture war issues like the trans stuff and the Islamist stuff, that this government is totally and utterly out of touch.
Yeah, and crucially, unlike Lee, the public want to see exactly what Lee's got, guts. Has the Prime Minister got guts? That's the real question. Would you like to sit down for a pint with him? That's another one of the questions that voters ask themselves. And increasingly, the language that Rishi Sunak is using to talk about this country, the problems, we just had Tobias Ellwood, a Sunak ally, on, saying that everything was fantastic, everything was going to plan. We've got 15% off here, 10% up there, 5% here. We do following this point and that point at this point of the plan, and the public are saying, yes, but my life, every day, things are more expensive, services are worse, you're taking more in taxes, and you are increasingly ignoring me on all of the things that matter to me, and using complicated words.
Telling me, but also not standing up to the people who are telling us that our country is terrible. People hate that. I mean, Tobias Ellwood talked about, we both had been at school in America, but, you salute the flag in the morning, you sing the national anthem. I did that for 2 years when I was at primary school in America. I thought that was rather nice, actually, that sort of feeling of camaraderie. I'm not sure we'd have to bring that back in this country, but it would be nice if our teachers, paid for by our taxes, didn't spend their entire time telling us that our country is a horrible, horrible place. It's terrible for girls, it's terrible for anyone who's black or Asian, a terrible history and going nowhere. I mean, and we're all going to die from climate change. I mean, maybe we'd like someone to stand up against that. Maybe the people to do that should be the government who pass on our taxes to pay these people. I don't know.
Julia, the people that run this country are embarrassed by it.
They are.
They are ashamed of us, of our history, of our heritage, of our values, of our future, of the lot. Yeah. And actually, there are a lot of people that would turn around and say, oh, Lee Anderson's a very negative politician. Reform, they're all about negative. They're all about hate. Actually, I look at them at times, and not a member, not a supporter, member of the Conservative Party, but I look at some of what they stand for and I say, actually, that's a more optimistic vision for this country.
I think people, is that hope and change. That's what people want. Here's another question, though, about Lee Anderson. Is this about, with all due respect to a lot of politicians, just about Lee Anderson? He's a man, he's been paid by £100,000 for a weekly show on a rival channel. He's a man that, a lot of it has been about Lee Anderson. Is this about him saving his skin because he's basically been told, unless you apologise, you're not getting the whip back and you won't be able to win your seat? Is he, or is it too much of an ego? Is this about, as often people fear, the Galloway-style thing? It's about Lee Anderson rather than what the people of, say, Ashfield, his constituency. So
what if it is? Is he any different to any Tory MP that's clinging on to the party whip because they see it as their meal ticket to 20, 30 years of 90 grand a year?
Very fair point.
Being a Tory MP. I'm not going to have this notion that Lee Anderson, because he stood up and done something brave, is actually the opportunistic one. The craven ones are the ones that disagree with the Conservative Party and stick in it in order to save their own skin.
What is going to be fascinating over the coming weeks and months is the little black book from the Tory whips of all the things that they think that they've got on Lee Anderson coming out in the papers, coming out in the media. But of course, the answer to that will always be, but you appointed him as deputy chairman of the party, and he wasn't sacked as deputy chairman. He resigned so he could vote on the Rwanda bill. Again, another issue that people feel very strongly about.